Most asteroids spin. This one is tipping over. NASA flew past a rock called Donaldjohanson last spring. The full read came back this week, and the spin makes no sense at first. It tumbles end over end every 10 days and rocks sideways every 26. Two clocks running at once, and both are slowing down. You're listening to Stardrift FM. 6 stories on the desk tonight. The lead is that asteroid, and the part I keep circling back to is the brake. What's slowing it down is nothing but sunlight. After that, SpaceX flew a spacecraft built to do exactly one thing: fall back to Earth with cargo inside. And a star swarm that has sat in the catalog since 1968 turns out to be something with no second example anywhere in the sky. 3 more behind those, including the night the space station's main robot arm seized up, with a cargo ship already on the schedule. NASA's Lucy spacecraft is on a 12-year tour of asteroids, and Donaldjohanson was never meant to be the headline. It was a warm-up, a calibration target on the way to the real prize, the Trojan asteroids out at Jupiter, starting in 2027. Lucy shot past it in April of last year at 30,000 miles an hour, about 600 miles off the surface. What it photographed is an 8-kilometer rubble pile shaped like a peanut, 2 lobes joined at a thin neck, a contact binary that came together slow and gentle a long time ago. Then the rotation. Most asteroids spin on a single axis, steady like a top. Donaldjohanson does not. It tumbles end over end on 1 clock 10.5 days, while slowly rolling around its long axis on another, 26.5. Astronomers call that a non-principal axis rotator. In plain terms, it is falling over, slowly, in 2 directions at once. Here is the part I keep coming back to. That spin is winding down. Levison's team reconstructs a body that once turned far faster, at least 10 times faster, brake to this crawl over roughly 155 million years. And the thing doing the braking is not a collision. It is sunlight. Photons hitting an irregular shape, pushing a little off-center, can torque a rock spin over geological time. The headline was The Peanut. The brake is the better story. One honest caveat: nobody filmed any of that. The age and the slowdown are reconstructed from the shape and the spin state, a model, not a measurement. But it's a careful model, and it turns a throwaway calibration rock into the most interesting thing Lucy has touched so far. This morning, a Falcon 9 lifted off from Cape Canaveral carrying something SpaceX had barely talked about, a capsule called Starfall. It's not a satellite and not a crew vehicle. It's a disk, about 10 feet across, 3 feet tall, built for exactly one job. Going up is the easy part. Starfall is built to come back down. The pitch is in-space manufacturing, making things in zero gravity you can't make on the ground. Pharmaceutical crystals, special optical fiber, exotic alloys. People have chased that idea for 40 years. It keeps stalling on the same wall, and the wall is not the rocket. It's getting the product home, a cheap, repeatable way back down through the atmosphere. Starfall is SpaceX trying to own that return trip. Eric Berger at Ars Technica has tracked how quietly SpaceX moved on this, and the timing is the tell. The same morning Starfall flew, SpaceX opened its first public bond, reportedly aiming north of $20 billion, the largest raise in the company's history. A secret spacecraft and the biggest check the company has ever written on the same day. That isn't a coincidence. It's a company showing 2 things at once. It can build the thing, and it can pay for the next 10. The part worth flagging: SpaceX didn't invent this idea. A startup called Varda has been flying small return capsules for 2 years to prove exactly this market. So the move is the familiar one, the company that owns the road deciding it wants the delivery business too. If the return trip becomes routine and cheap, the factory in orbit story stops being a pitch deck. That's a real if. That's this morning's news, still warm. The next story has been sitting in the star catalogs, mislabeled since 1968. Toward the center of the Milky Way, buried behind a wall of dust, sits a dense knot of stars called Terzan 5. It was cataloged as a globular cluster in 1968 and treated as one for 58 years. New work this month. Webb plus 12 years of Hubble images says that label is wrong. A globular cluster is supposed to be a single batch of stars, all born at about the same time. One candle, one birthday. Terzan 5 has 4. The team resolved separate generations formed 12.5, 4.7, 3.8, and 2.5 billion years ago. 4 distinct birthdays in one object. A globular cluster cannot do that. So what is it? The reading the data forces is that Terzan 5 is not a cluster at all. It's a leftover. A surviving chunk of one of the primordial clumps that merged to build the Milky Way's central bulge. Most of those clumps dissolved into the bulge completely. This one didn't finish. It got stranded, intact, mid-process, a fossil of the galaxy's own assembly. Francesco Ferrero floated this back in 2009, and it sat as a hypothesis nobody could close out. The bulge is so choked with dust that ordinary telescopes can't cleanly separate the star populations. It took Webb's infrared eyes to finally count the generations. What I like here is the unglamorous mechanism. No new physics, no shock headline, just enough resolving power at last to settle a 58-year filing error. From the oldest thing on the desk to one of the newest. A rocket that set a European record this week. On June 17th, Europe's Ariane 6 flew its most powerful mission yet. For the first time, it carried 4 of the upgraded P160C solid boosters, each one a meter taller and packing 14 extra tons of propellant over the version before it. ESA is calling it the heaviest payload a European rocket has ever lifted, beating a record Ariane 5 set in 2013. And here's where it gets interesting. What did Europe's flagship sovereign rocket, the one built so the continent never has to depend on anyone else for access to space, carry on its record flight? 36 satellites for Amazon. Amazon's LEO network, the one built to compete with Starlink. The most European launch imaginable, hauling an American broadband constellation to orbit. Back in May, on the Blue Origin pad fire, I said the long pole in any launch recovery is the pad, not the rocket. That the LC-36 complex, not the vehicle, would set Blue Origin's delay, months at minimum. Here's the downstream nobody connected. Amazon is on a hard FCC deadline to get its satellites up. Its own heavy lift ride, New Glenn, is grounded while that pad gets rebuilt. So Amazon is buying every launch it can from everyone, including the one rocket designed specifically so Europe would never have to. The FCC clock I flagged in May is exactly why a sovereign European rocket is flying American payloads. Jonathan McDowell puts the unsentimental version best. Rockets don't care about flags, they care about manifests. Ariane 6 had a shaky debut 2 years ago. 8 flights later, it's setting records by becoming a workhorse for the exact commercial market it was supposed to make Europe independent of. On May 27th, the International Space Station's main robotic arm, Canadarm2, the 58-foot limb that's been working outside since 2001, drew a spike of current in its wrist and locked up. The wrist roll joint, 1 of 7, seized. The arm has been out of normal service ever since. This matters more than a stuck joint sounds. Canadarm2 is how the station catches some of its incoming cargo ships, Cygnus, and the new Japanese HTVX. Those vehicles don't dock themselves, they park alongside and the arm reaches out and grabs them. An arm that can't move is a station that can't take certain deliveries. And there's a cargo run already on the calendar. The fix is a spacewalk on June 30th, 2 astronauts out of the Quest airlock to install a spare joint that's been waiting on the truss. Notice what NASA did first, though. It didn't rush. It pulled the arm from service and spent weeks gathering data before committing to a repair. That's the unglamorous discipline the job actually runs on. 2 weeks ago on this Vested Cracks, I said the real number to watch on this station isn't any single fault. It's a 25-year-old machine booked to fly until 2030, picking up small failures faster than anyone likes to admit. A leaking tunnel on the Russian side, a frozen joint on the robotics side, opposite ends of the same aging structure, both surfacing in the same month. None of these is a crisis by itself. The pattern is a story. a repair crew fixing a stuck joint by hand in orbit. Meanwhile, on the ground in Florida, the next great observatory just rolled off a barge. On June 21st, a barge pulled into Kennedy Space Center carrying the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, NASA's next flagship. 9,000 pounds of optics, finished and shipped down from Maryland. It starts about 70 days of final processing for a launch no earlier than August 30th on a Falcon Heavy out to a gravitational parking spot a million miles from Earth. Roman's trick is width. Its main camera sees a patch of sky about 100 times wider than Hubble's, at the same sharpness. People call it 1,000 Hubbles. It will sweep enormous swaths of the universe to pin down dark energy and find exoplanets by watching distant stars flicker. That's the headline, and it's a good one. But here's the part the launch milestone hides. Casey Dreyer at the Planetary Society has spent the year tracking what's happening to NASA science, and the backdrop is harsh. Deep proposed budget cuts, missions canceled, Mars sample return defunded. Roman got finished, early even, while the program around it was being pared back. A flagship arriving on the pad ahead of schedule isn't only good engineering. In this budget cycle, it's almost an act of defiance. And Roman nearly didn't make it at all. It spent years on cancellation lists before Congress kept it funded. So the image worth holding isn't the clean room or the rocket. It's a finished telescope that outlasted the budget fights, sitting in Florida, waiting for a ride. The science is still 2 years out. That it reached the pad at all is the news tonight. 6 stories. 5 of them are this week's: a capsule built to come home, a rocket setting records, an arm getting fixed by hand, a telescope reaching the pad. The 6th was already true before any of it. That asteroid was tumbling and winding down for 155 million years before anyone built a camera to catch it, and it'll keep winding down long after tonight's broadcast is forgotten. That's the one I'd keep. Back next week.